Hello, thank you for listening to 3 Legacies Recovery Recordings. If you enjoy our program, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to share with a friend. We're also self-supporting, so feel free to contribute to the channel through Venmo at Recovery Recordings 615. Please note that the views expressed on this podcast are solely our individual views and do not represent any official stance of any 12-step program. We are not affiliated with any specific recovery organization, and this content should not be considered as professional advice for alcoholism or addiction.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to 3 Legacies Recovery Recording Podcast. I'm your host, Paul. I'm an alcoholic. Today is Wednesday, March 12th, 2025. This is episode 19. I want to thank all the listeners for all the comments. We've had a lot of people send in emails, different comments, different questions, or different ideas on different podcast episodes. So really appreciate all the feedback. And our email address is recoveryrecordings615@yahoo.com. Also, we are on several of the major platforms, streaming platforms, Audible, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and we just really appreciate everybody's feedback. And tonight, we have a special guest coming all the way from Austin, Texas. It's Katie P. How you doing, Katie?
Hey, good. Thanks, Paul. Katie Parker, alcoholic.
Yeah, this is for the listeners. We are doing the second half of, we're going to do the fear and the sexual conduct inventory on step 4. We did the first part last week. Was it last week? It wasn't last week, was it? Well, one of the last episodes.
We took 2 weeks off.
Yeah. So a few weeks ago, anyways, we did you can go back and listen to all the listeners. You can go back on there and find, we did the first part of step 4. And this is a series we're going through. We're kind of spreading it out. So it's called Trudging the Road to Happy Destiny, A Journey Through the Big Book with Katie P. And it's been super cool, Katie. I appreciate you.
It really has been fun, isn't it? It's been, I tell you, I was apprehensive in about 100 different ways, and not one of them showed up. I mean, it turned out to be really great. Nice. Because it's how typical alcoholic, we have no experience with it, but we're going to judge the heck out of it. And then we find out we were way off base,
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, absolutely. Although I got to tell you, to be honest, I just love that about us because it never ceases to amaze me. I've been sober a while and I'm still like, wow, still there. Yep. Still there.
That's awesome. The last time we spoke, you was about to go on another big book weekend where you were doing a little small women's thing. How'd that go?
Oh, it was fantastic. I mean, it was 40 women and they all stayed, and it was just a really special deal. A chick named Brian put it on, and she and her dear friend, they drank together, got sober together. I mean, it was just, their story was fantastic. Michelle and Brian, and they just were so enthusiastic. They heard Marty and I at Ladybug do a big book weekend, and they just said, we're on fire. And that was years ago. I think that was 2019 when we did that. And she's been asking me to come do it. And I just thought, you know what, I'm going to do that. And it was fabulous, just fabulous.
Nice. Heck yeah, that's cool. What do you got coming up?
Yeah.
You got any more big book weekends coming up?
I'm doing something really unique in Las Vegas. Sheldon asked me to come out there, and it's a half a day Saturday on anything I want to talk about, which is just a gift. It's like anything. So nobody's telling me what to talk on. I am so excited. So I'm going to go out there and do that for Sheldon, and that'll be a lot of fun. And then there's a Woodstock version platform, which is everybody has a step up in upstate New York a couple of weeks after that. So that's as far out as I can think. I think I've got some other stuff, but right now that's it. And then, of course, we're going to international. Are you going to international?
No, I'm not going to be able to make it, no, but I would love to. I know a lot of people that are.
Oh, my gosh, they are so much fun. Charlie and I we just had a ball. We originally went to Toronto, and after that, we were like, we're in. We're doing this every chance we get. And I mean, to all your listeners, I'd love for you you got 5 years for the next one. Save your money. Nice. And get yourself together, because it's pretty remarkable to hear 60,000 people say the Lord's Prayer.
That's what I've heard. My buddy
You know,
tells me about it. Yeah.
oh,
Wow.
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 And when they walk in with the flags, it is spectacular.
Wow.
And I just love it. I'm sorry we missed Detroit, because of the pandemic, but we had our rooms and everything ready. And unfortunately, Charlie missed, that would have been his last international. So that was really a disappointment.
Yeah.
But, you can't stop the machine, of life.
Yeah.
It's going to rock on. And so, so we'll do it, but you got to go to the next one. I know out of the country is more challenging, especially for our group. They are none too kind with DUIs in Canada.
Yeah.
You get to the border and they turn your butt right around. They're like, dip, 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 dip.
Yeah.
So you got to really got to jump through a lot of fire hoops, and it doesn't matter if it's 30 years ago. They are tough.
Yeah, that's what I was told. That's one of the reasons I kind of just went again. I was like, I'm just going to wait. Yeah.
Yeah, somebody said that they got something special that you can click on a certain page, and but you got to come out of pocket about $2,500. So
yeah,
it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I'm going to be me and you. I'll see you at the Appalachian Regional Roundup that's coming up. You're going to be.
Oh
there.
yeah, that's right. That's one coming up in May.
May 16th. Yeah, that's going to be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Looking forward to that. It's a great conference. Yeah,
that's going to be fun. Well, we get to meet.
Yeah, I'm super stoked about that. Yeah, so. Well, cool. So tonight we are going to do we did the resentments part of the step 4 the last time we met up, and tonight we're going to do the fears and sexual misconduct. So, yeah.
Yep. And it's interesting because for the longest time the fear inventory never touched me. I didn't get it. I'm the kind of gal who takes a step forward when I get scared, and so I never saw fear. And I'll never forget, we have a Monday night meeting at my house for my sponsees and all their sponsees, and it's a group of drunks getting together. It's not an AA meeting, but it was interesting because I just said, fear is next week, guys, and I just really don't have much to bring you. And one of my sponsees said, I love the fear inventory, and I said, well, you do the meeting, and by golly, she absolutely changed my life on that fear inventory. I had never really considered that I didn't do much with it. I just didn't consider it. It's just that paragraph. And I really do believe that paragraph, at least for me, was confusing. Yeah. It was like, well, of course, self-reliance failed me, and so then when Evelyn did it, it was so remarkable. So, I now understand the fear inventory much better and have it pretty well down pat. That I actually have quite a bit of fear. So kind of surprised me there. I did not see that coming. But it really is amazing how if you really start to look at your stuff and you start to ask yourself questions, it's okay to say, I really don't understand.
Yeah. Because
I think the big book is, it's such a beautiful piece of spiritual literature, but it needs to be taught, and not everybody. If you understand what I'm saying, then I speak your language. But there are plenty of speakers out there that other speakers speak other people's language. So you just have to find, same thing with spiritual literature. Emmett Fox speaks my language. Thomas Merton doesn't. Eckhart Tolle doesn't. There's nothing wrong with them. I just don't, when I sit down to study them, I don't get much out of it. Yeah. So you have to kind of find your spiritual teacher and be open-minded about it, because it is tricky. It really is tricky.
So true.
So I think it's a good idea to just kind of briefly talk about the third step. What do we take into the fourth step? You really have to understand the third step to be able to put some real meat on the bone for the fourth step. So if you're looking at 60 to 63 is life-changing words, because for the most part, most of us thought that it was the step off the wall, that we turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understand him, right? Yeah. And we're inviting God in. We're letting God do this. We're letting God do this. Well, there's a huge body of work you're missing, and it's just the root of our problem. Other than that, as Charlie used to say, rock on. Yeah. But I mean, the root of our problem is selfishness and self-centeredness, right? Setting aside the drink problem, this was the true root of our problem. Well, I remember the first time I saw that, setting aside the drink problem, right? That not drinking is just the beginning. I thought it was the finish line, and I remembered first time I ever heard somebody say that, I thought, say that again? What, are you telling me that this is not about not drinking? And don't get me wrong. I'm playing with the not drinking part. No, we need you sober.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, what's going to happen is going to be a remarkable experience, right? So if it says to us that selfishness and self-centeredness is the root of our troubles, right? I thought it meant stingy and conceited. And once again, I was voted most likable in high school 4 years in a row. I am clearly not stingy and conceited. Nobody said that to me. I just assumed it. So that's the other, when we talk about these old ideas, we first have to understand them, and then we have to let go. Absolutely. We don't even know what our old ideas are. So that's why inventory is so important. If somebody makes me even think that I have to be submissive, I'll lose my mind. Now, nobody's doing that to me, but if I have that sense and feeling inside of me, I'll lose my mind.
Wow.
So my old idea is that somebody could actually change me from who I am to something I'm not. And it wouldn't even happen. But once I get into fear about it, I'm all over the place. And then it says we're driven by 100 forms of fear, right? It could have said 1,000 forms. Fear, remember, is motivating and paralyzing. It's one of the two. It's motivating. If the house is on fire and you got to get out of it, you're motivated to get out of a burning house. If you haven't paid your IRS taxes in years and you get a letter from the IRS, you're paralyzed to even open the letter. So you have to understand that fear shows up in many different ways, as to how I react to it. And then it says we're the 100 forms of fear, self-delusion. I go down 100 rabbit trails with self-delusion. All of a sudden, somebody just has to say, did you know Mary got that job? And I'm down a rabbit hole because I applied for that job. What, did they pick her over me? Just one statement. And nobody even knows it's happening because it just happens like snapping your fingers in your head. It just goes on and on and on and on. And so, I'm down 100 rabbit trails, and then self-seek. I'm on a mission to figure out what's going on because I'm driven. And when you're driven, you're not choosing to act that way, right? You're just out of your mind. And you can't, if you walk into a meeting and say somebody kind of gives you a cross-eyed look like, what are you doing here? And it's just a look. You can sit down and be completely self-consumed throughout the entire meeting as to what was that look about. Then you go down the rabbit hole. I was kind of talking some trash about that guy. I wonder if Mary told him I was talking trash about it. It's just a hot mess of stuff that happens. And then we go to self-pity, right? I can't believe people think that of me. We're driven, now we're in self-pity. And then we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate because I let something just drive me in my mind's eye and I had no idea. And the only way to really get down to causes and conditions is to put pen to paper. And I would love that people would write in some level of inventory at least twice a month, maybe 3 times a month. And that's being generous.
Amen. I
prefer to write inventory anytime I'm bugged. If I'm bugged, I'm writing it in my evening review or on awakening. But keep in mind, 3/4 of my inventory never gets to Marty because I already see by the 3rd column I'm a hypocrite. Or by the 3rd column, I'm believing a delusional lie. God's got my back, has always had my back, and that this fear is not coming true. So, and then of course your conduct inventory, even though it's got an emphasis on sex, it's still a conduct inventory. How do I show up as a mother? How do I show up as a wife? How do I show up as a sister? Those same words apply in the place of sex. So if sex is not troublesome, then you use it as a conduct inventory, and it's really, really helpful as a conduct inventory. And so on page 67, the 3rd paragraph, it says, it's talking about fear. It says this short word somehow touches about every aspect of our lives. It was an evil and corroding thread. The fabric of our existence was shot through with it. Now, it's interesting because, in our primary purpose group, we use a 1935 dictionary. and we like to just call out words and see what they meant. At the time they were writing the big book. And Charlie loves telling this story. He said he just, the dictionary person's to his left, and he said, look up the word shot, because to me, we're competitive shotgun shooters, right? We shoot sporting clays. So I know what shot means. It means put a big old piece of material, hang it up, blow a shotgun through it, and you got a big old hole.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what we both thought, the same thing. So it says the fabric of our existence was shot through with it. Well, shot is a material, a fabric material statement. It's taken out of the context. We're taking it as a firearm. They're taking it as a kind of a material sewing thing. And this is the definition. Woven with warped or weft thread, causing the fabric to take on a different appearance based on the viewpoint of the observer.
Wow.
And I swear to God, it was like a Cheech and Chong moment in our meeting. I mean, everybody went, whoa. And so you had to really absorb it. And then, of course, Lindsay brings that piece of material that is shot through with it, which you look at it one way, it's purple. You change the viewpoint of it, and it's blue. So if we're saying that fear is like this, it's based on the viewpoint of the observer. So that's why fear is either motivating or paralyzing.
Wow.
Right? It's based on your viewpoint. So if the house is on fire, you're getting out of there. And if you hadn't paid the IRS and they send you a letter, you can't open it because it's paralyzing. So that word shot just took such meaning. And that's why I think a 1935 dictionary, you can get them on eBay. They're just great to have. As a matter of fact, at our anniversary in Austin, when AA came to Austin, we celebrate every year in December. And one of the gifts we give the speakers that speak at it is a 1935 dictionary. That was Charlie's idea, and just in honor of him, we keep that coming. So then it set in motion trains of circumstances we felt which brought us misfortune. We felt we didn't deserve, but did we not ourselves set the ball rolling? See, once again, when the book is trying in the inventory process, at first it says we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. So that's what happens. Over here, it's telling me that, but did we not ourselves set the ball rolling? And I think it's really important to explain what that means. So when I'm listening to inventory, and I listen to a lot of inventory, I'm looking for the decision that they made that set this whole situation up. 99% of the time, with the exception of rape, incest, physical abuse, those are horrific things. Those we're setting aside completely. This is all the rest of the stuff in life, right? Just all the nonsense at work that you're mad at somebody, the nonsense that you're afraid you're going to lose your job, the nonsense that people in AA are not going to like me. All of those kind of fears is what we're talking about. So when you're listening to inventory, you're walking the dog backwards till you find out and say to them, so is it possible that you were thinking you were helping this individual and all of a sudden they turned on you, and you were hoping one day that they would stand up in front of the crowd and say, so-and-so helped me so much and I want to thank her for it. And inevitably, the person goes, I remember having that thought. I said, well, I've had enough inventory. I've read enough inventory that's very clearly in mind. But it didn't land on me that I made that decision till I put pen to paper. And you have to look at any inventory, a fear inventory, a conduct inventory, a resentment inventory, like a crime scene. You got to figure out the blood splatter. I mean, they put little numbers by everything, take pictures, because you're trying to recreate what happened. Yeah. And that's what inventory is about. We're trying to recreate it. And let me tell you, some people just live in the fear inventory. I personally am the kind of personality that lives a little bit more in resentment. But now today, I'm also all about the fear inventory. And once we're deciding, remember the book says that we have to get rid of our old ideas. The result was nil until we let go absolutely. These old ideas are going to be smattered throughout, and they're going to be put especially in the self-reliance column of the fear inventory. And I tell people, look, however you read that paragraph, if you have 3 columns, great. If you have 5 columns, great. Just write it, whatever you do. So in column 1, I write the fear and why I have it. Now, believe it or not, the why I have it can be kind of baffling, right? So take for granted I have a fear that I'm going to run out of money. That's a pretty common one everyone has. And I had this when Joe was alive. And I'm scared to death I'm going to run out of money. Why do I have it? Because I'm irresponsible with cash. Well, that's pretty clear, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I live beyond my means, right? There's many of them that you could put, but the fear and why you have it is going to be, the why you have it is going to be your old ideas. And then I like to put self-reliance in the second column. Some people read the book and they put truth there. Yeah, I don't really care. Do it any way you want to do it, as long as you got a self-reliance column and a truth column. And then I leave the fourth column up to be the love letter from God to me. That it's really, God reliance. He's going to speak to me just like one of his children, right? He's just going to be loving and kind. And every once in a while you get somebody that says, well, I didn't have a kind father. And, okay, well then let's forget about your dad. Have you ever met a kind father? Yes, I have. Okay, let's use them as the example. Don't go, just because you didn't have a kind father, don't go back to him. Go back to a man that you met or a person that you met that's a father. Whatever floats your boat, you've got to get something that is, the creator, as the book calls it, right? It's constantly talking about the creator. Now, granted, I know that may sound too religious for too many people. And if that's going to stump you up, then get something, you know the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
Figure out the verbiage for you so it doesn't stump you up. That's the other thing that's really tricky in AA is, when people dig their heels in, I always say, it's not an inventory problem. It's a first step issue. They really, if they won't go into the second step and try to trust that there's a power greater than them, it's a first step issue. They still think they can get the job done on their own power. Same thing with inventory. If you can't get somebody to write inventory, it's not the inventory issue. It's the fact that they really do not believe they're hopeless.
Yeah.
And many of us, I get it. I get it 100%. I didn't have it, but I was doing all the codependency group therapy stuff. So I felt like what the book was saying was kind of elementary to now come full. So I swear to God, I remember having that thought, years later. I thought, this is old. It's silly. We are doing advanced AA in this codependency group therapy. And I tell you what, I'm not knocking that stuff.
Sure.
That was some of the toughest work I had ever done. But the piece I missed, and I think they were teaching it, I know they were, was to take everything to God. I just missed that whole piece.
I hear you.
I thought, as long as I know it, then I can stop this behavior. Just tell me what I'm doing, tell me what's best for me, and let me rock on. And I remember those thoughts, like they were yesterday. And the people that were running this therapy group, I love them like family. I still love them very much today. They were indispensable in my life. They changed the course of my life. And I was saying this at the workshop this weekend. I believe that the reason I can hear inventory so well is because of my mentor, Mary Jo. This woman was remarkable. And I knew that right out of the gate when I met her. And I thought, I want to be just like her. And I watched her, like Charlie says, like a cat watches you eat a tuna fish sandwich. I listened to everything she did. And I am so good at hearing inventory because I learned from the best. Nice. And and Charlie had done some counseling in Tennessee. It was a week he had gone to this place in Tennessee. And the woman that was working in his group therapy mentioned Mary Jo. And Charlie just said he just was stunned that this woman's mentor was Mary Jo. And that's how impressive she was. And she taught a lot of people some really good stuff. So I just love her with all my heart. But that's the beauty of, if you're scared about inventory, call me. I'll do a piece of inventory with you. I'll teach you how to listen to inventory, what you're looking for, because the better we get it here in inventory, instead people use the term read inventory. And I don't like to read inventory. I like you to write it like we're going to read it. But I want you to tell me who's in column 1, and then I'm going to ask you a ton of questions, like the crime scene. I'm going to look at this particular person in life. How many brothers and sisters did they have? What year were they born? Were they at all involved? Were they raised by World War II vets? I mean, there's so many things that go to take place in the inventory process. And then I say, now tell me what's in the second column. And I only want 3 bullet points right in that second column. Well, if we're talking about the fear, then we're talking about, I want you to tell me how self-reliance shows up for you in this fear and why you have it. Because whatever's in column 1, be it on a sex inventory, be it on a fear inventory or a resentment, I'm going to do some digging because I'm on a fact-finding mission, right? You're on a fact-facing. I'm on the fact-finding. So I'm going to try to understand why you have this fear from my perspective. And then I can feed you what I think I'm seeing.
Nice.
It's always a little tricky, yeah, in the fear inventory, and I'm sure you've written plenty of them, to see how delusional the fear is. It really is. It's a delusional lie.
Yeah. It's funny, like just something that you just talked about made me think about it. You'd said that if I even sense that someone is going to make me be somewhat submissive, oh man.
Oh,
and I can completely relate to that, right? And it's funny how, like, when you see that, it's like this position that you're holding, like it's like a mental position that you feel like ego, pretty much, right? That you feel like you got to like protect.
You bet.
You got to protect the hell out of this, and it's like, wow.
Oh, it's like, Charlie, if I was speaking, or if Charlie was talking, and in AA we're all talking at the same time and everything, and he'd hold his hand up. Or any man would hold their hand up to me when I was talking. I mean, Charlie's like, oh, here she goes. There she goes. I mean, my head blows off. It's like, do not silence me like that. And nobody is. They might just be trying to get a word in edgewise, but it's something about that hand. Yeah. And it didn't happen in my childhood. My father didn't do it to me. It just is anything that makes me feel like you're going to make me submissive.
I can relate.
And then I picked the word submissive. Nobody did. It's so crazy. And the whole thing is, it makes no sense, but only another drunk gets it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like, yeah. Thank God we have each other.
Yeah. There's been times where I'll talk, I'll try to like explain this to, let's just say my wife, and she's like, "Where'd you come up with that at?"
Well, isn't that so true? Because that's why in AA we say the most tragic stuff and we all laugh.
Yeah.
And you go to the PTA and share that same story, and they're putting their hand over their mouth. Yeah. I mean, they're like, what? Oh my God. And the humor that we have, where it talks about it, the newcomer can find no joy in what we bring if we don't show them that we're just tons of fun.
Yeah.
I always tell people, go to conferences, do all kinds of stuff. No matter how silly that Super Bowl party looks, go to it. Yeah. And you're going to find yourself having a ball. Fear will keep people from doing half of that stuff.
Sure.
I don't know anybody. And you don't have to in AA. You just have to be in AA. I'm still a big fan of telling people at their home group, if somebody walks in, you don't know, you beeline it over to them and introduce yourself. And then ask them, are you new? Yes, I am. Well, of course I know they're new because I've never seen them there at my home group every week. I said, listen, I got some people you can sit with. I take them over there. I mean, I make you feel so at home. It's what we did in the 80s, and it has become a lost art.
Yeah.
I mean, a lost art.
And that's the whole purpose of the group. Yeah.
Exactly. If you're sitting there on your phone by yourself, I'll be marching right up to you. Yeah. I'm like, okay, come on. Unless you got some kid at home that needs your attention, let's mingle. This is what we all do. We mingle, and I always feel like an AA meeting sounds like a bar room. It's just a lot of people talking at once. It's just we can't ever get away from that beauty that we have, like Bill at the Mayflower Hotel, the clinking of the glasses.
Yeah.
And, that's what we're just drawn to.
Mm-hmm.
And
True.
I love it. Well, then it says now remember that it was an evil and corroding thread. The fabric of our existence was shot through with it. And then fear, it sets into motion. It's fear. Trains of circumstances we felt, which brought us misfortune that we did not deserve. But did we not ourselves set that ball rolling? So remember, we're in that spot where we have to wake up to setting that ball in motion. So it's basically telling you, understand your old ideas.
Yeah.
If you say the same thing to me 3 times in a row, when I'm asking you a question and you keep repeating the one statement, Charlie said he's never seen anybody's head blow off like mine blows off. Now, for Charlie, if you said, Charlie, he became a madman. And I swear, how do you figure that out? Well, you just watch them lose their shit publicly. And oh my God, it was so funny. But that's one of the things that I loved about Charlie and I's workshops is we were able to identify so much stuff and share it in a lighthearted way that just hopefully opened up to the world. How just look at your stuff and try to find some humor in it, right? And it, but it's so interesting because if I ask you a question and you answer it without the answer I just asked, and then I ask it again and you say the same thing again, by the 3rd time I'm homicidal. I am homicidal. Somebody's going down right now.
Funny.
And oh my God, Charlie had some artwork somewhere. And the woman wasn't selling it. Oh, and Adel would be laughing if he gets a hold of this podcast. And the woman must have said, Charlie, so many times. Charlie absolutely lost his mind on the phone with this woman. He was so ugly to her that he couldn't even go pick up his artwork because he was too humbled to go see her. And he sent Adel to go get the artwork because she said, Charlie.
That's funny.
And that's it. So these old ideas, you have to know yours, right? Now, you're not going to know all of them, but I've been around a while. I've written enough inventory. So some of my core old ideas are that everybody has to like me. Everybody.
Let me ask
now,
you a question.
I don't like everybody.
Let me ask you something that you had just talked about earlier, and it was something that you had brought up when we were doing step 3 that I was meant to ask you a question about. So when it goes back to going, walking the dog back to seeing where we set the ball rolling, right?
Right.
I'm curious on your take on this. Is it just could that possibly be like a mental stance, or does it have to be something physically that happened? So previously you'd mentioned whenever you're talking to a sponsee and she was give the guy in a meeting a certain smile, right? Remember when you were talking?
Sure.
About, so does it have to be something physical, or could it just be somebody just kind of threatens you, or you get fear from them in some way, so you just automatically kind of have a certain mental stance when you approach them? You get what I mean? Does that make sense?
Well, now I'm not following you completely. So now, are we talking about if somebody gives you that head nod, or if
setting the ball rolling?
Right. Well, see, we can set the ball rolling with just a decision in our mind.
That's what I was
that we
thinking.
never said.
You just nailed it. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And we can gossip about somebody, and then they told somebody that I was gossiping about them, or at least I assume they did.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
And it can be this whole setting the ball rolling or stepping on the toes of our fellows does not mean I physically stepped on your toes.
Yeah.
It means that I was either talking trash about you, which, good God, in AA. Come on. If somebody, I try to tell people, you have to be sure the person you told this information to is a closed mouth friend.
Yeah.
If you don't know that and you tell somebody something and they tell someone else, you should have not told the person the information. Period. I mean, I'm not going to point the finger and say you were wrong. The person that gossiped was definitely out of line.
Yeah.
But all I need to do is that one time. And let me tell you, I will be darn sure that I'm talking to a closed mouth friend. And I'll say things like, I'm going to trust that we're going to keep this in the vault.
Yeah. Sure.
And that's your tip to know. I'm asking you not to tell anybody this.
Like a confirmation.
Exactly. And if you do, you better come back and apologize to me.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to think I don't gossip, but I do. I do periodically. Like I will say, I will never say the sponsee's name, but I will say something about the storyline, and I didn't get permission.
Yeah.
So I will then go get permission and say, look, I want you to know I did say this. I didn't say who it was, and never have I had anybody say that's not okay. But I would also not share something that I thought would really upset them.
Yeah.
And in my lifetime, I have stepped on some toes doing that, but it wasn't on CD. I try to be extremely respectful of not even assuming, not saying their name. There's so many ways that we can step on people's toes.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about our old ideas, remember there's thousands of them, millions of them.
Yeah.
So it's got to be, you got to write the inventory so we can figure out the old idea in that piece of inventory. And then as you start to put these pieces of the puzzle together, you begin, I always like to say that you need to when you do inventory with me, I encourage you to take that inventory for 2 weeks into evening review and on awakening and watch throughout the day for these quote unquote character defects, these old ideas, the way self shows up for you, because your DNA is different than my DNA. And, who would guess that if you repeat the same thing 3 times to me, my head blows up? Well, I know that. And there was something else I did. Oh, my God, I'll never forget this one. Charlie and I were at an international, I can't remember where we were. I remember the restaurant we were in, and somebody had invited us to something that I wasn't too enthusiastic to go to. It was a bit controversial in AA, so I had plenty of old ideas coming in there. And the guy is standing up against a wall, and I am right in front of him because the table that they're serving on is behind me. So it's a really tight area. And Charlie was standing to my left, and he said something, and I said, I totally disagree with that. Well, his head hit the wall. The statement was so direct. I mean, talk about a direct hit to the hull, that his head hit the wall. And I mean, my world stopped. And at that point, I don't even think I said, I'm sorry. I was so taken back that all I knew is I say that a lot. And so Charlie and I walk outside, and I said, oh my gosh, Charlie, did you see that guy's head hit the wall? And he said, yes, I did. I said, do you know how often I say that statement? He goes, a lot. Right? Totally.
Yeah, sure.
I totally disagree with that. And I mean, then I started thinking about all the people that I have said that to. And I've hopefully I've cleaned up all of them. There's one that's still out there that I have not run into this person. But when I do, I will definitely clean it up because I really want to be face to face when I see them. And it's just, it's unfortunate, but it took that guy's head hitting the wall for me to realize that statement, it's just got nothing. It's like, well, I don't agree with that. It's totally fine. But throwing the word totally in there is just really drawing a line in the sand. And once again, that the beauty of inventory is that I begin to be able to see stuff I do without even writing inventory.
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about these old ideas, you have to begin knowing yours, right? Everybody's got to like me. Now, I don't have to like everybody, but everybody's got to like me, or I'm the best at everything. I mean, Charlie and I were so deeply competitive that will not float a lot of people's boat in a relationship. Well, it works in Charlie and I's. I mean, we were deeply competitive, but we were the yin and the yang. There was no sacrifice, And when I was married to Joe just loved to watch me talk to people. Well, Charlie loved to watch me talk to people, but he wanted to talk as much as I talked. So we were always fighting for the microphone. Let's just put it that way.
Funny.
And then I like to say, don't dare me, and don't double dog dare me. I mean, I'll take all of us out. That's just, we grew up with that in my family.
Yeah.
And being my generation where we're all born in the 50s, we had some, dare me was a big deal. And then it says sometimes we think fear ought to be classified with stealing. It seems to cause more trouble. So isn't that interesting that fear would steal something from the crowd, something from the group, something from you personally? It's really an interesting statement, because what fear does is it robs us of doing many things. Most people, that people won't go to international because they're afraid to be around that many drunks. I'll never forget, but I think it was the one in Toronto, and there was a chick standing there, and I just loved to talk to everybody, and she was just she looked like a statue, and she was about 15 feet from the door. And I said, "Hey, what's going on?" And she goes, "I have social anxiety. I'm too scared to go in there." I mean, I grabbed her by the arm and just walked her right in the middle of the room. She didn't have a chance to stop, nothing. And she looked at me and I go, "See, nothing happened.
Yeah.
You're fine.
Yeah.
You're going to be okay." And I mean, the look on her face was terrified.
Yeah.
But I told her, I said, is it possible that I was put right there, right then at that time, just to get you? I stood there and talked to her for a little bit. And then she said, "I got to go." And I said, I want you to hear me loud and clear. I'm proud of you. You came in the room.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to me, that's what fear will rob you of.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You won't go apply for the job that you would like to get. You won't go talk to the boy that you'd like to meet. I mean, it just robs us of everything. And trust me, it can do it to me too. But it's just so heartbreaking.
Amen. Thank God we have people that understand that are further down the path that grab us and just say, "Come on,"
Yeah, come on, we're going.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the other beauty about AA. I mean, we've been given the greatest gift ever, just the greatest gift ever. That complete strangers can talk to each other about anything, and it's remarkable, just remarkable. So it says on page 68, we reviewed our fears thoroughly. We put them on paper, even though we had no resentment in connection with them. We asked ourselves why we had them. Wasn't it because self-reliance failed us? That's the one that always stumped me. When it says we asked ourselves why we had them, I don't know if we have to go all the way back to our childhood and say what that was. I think the truth of the matter is the fear and why I have it would be, money. I'm scared to death because I'm irresponsible with cash is more of what we're looking for. That kind of simple solution. It's a tricky question though. Yeah. And then, cause is fear, condition is self-will, which equals self-reliance. So if you think about that, causes and conditions, the book's always telling us we got to get down to causes and conditions. So the cause is the fear, the condition is my self-will, and then that equals self-reliance. So it says self-reliance was good as far as it went, but it didn't go far enough. Some of us once had great self-confidence, but it didn't fully solve the fear problem or any other. When it made us cocky, it made it worse. And that is so true. Oh my gosh, that's a page out of my book. Is you scare me and I get cocky. I mean, I get like that whatever that thing is, it's little bitty and all of a sudden it puffs up big. I get that way. And cocky never plays well. Never. You walk away so disappointed in yourself. I hate to use the word ashamed, only because I'm just so disappointed in myself. I'm not really ashamed of who I am in that moment, but I'm just so disappointed. Why? Because we like to do passive aggressive, sarcastic one-liners, right? That's when I came into Charlie's meeting one night. I'll never forget. I always walked into the meeting about 20 minutes before it was over. I was working and I'd just come home from class and the boys are all sitting around the table, and Charlie had a meeting where it was just his sponsees. He didn't do his sponsees and their sponsees. It was just Charlie's sponsees, and that's the table that Mark was at, but this was after Mark had passed. And they're all being so cocky with each other. I mean, it was just, the sarcasm was just flying. And I thought, how in the world are these guys going to be able to share and trust people if you're just going to come back with a sarcastic, jab or punch? And the boys always say, that's just how we do it. Well, is it possible that that's an old idea? And you might want to consider that.
Amen.
And so, oh my gosh, it's Todd and Adel. I think Adel was at the table. Todd was so disturbed by it. And he was a counselor. He had a degree in it and everything. And he even came back the next week and said, I ran that past a buddy of mine. He thought it was ridiculous. I said, Todd, you don't have to do it. I was just offering you guys a consideration of it's hard to, and Charlie was all about it. He was all about if I've got something really personal to share at this table, and somebody's going to make a sarcastic comment to me, you just diminish the whole thing.
Amen.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's we're not going to get anywhere with it, and so I don't mean they got to sit there and sing Kumbaya while they're talking, but I mean, let's just try to get to where there's some intimacy and some personal about it, and share something kind.
Yeah.
And those boys still talk about that because it was a topic for a while. And then it says self-reliance was good as far as it went, but it didn't go far enough. Some of us once had that great self-confidence, but it didn't fully solve the fear problem, right? So I am a victim of the delusion that I can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if I just manage well. So what we're really looking at is self-centered fear, right?
Yeah.
I'm afraid I'm not going to get it. Then I get it. Now I'm afraid I'm going to lose it. See, that's the whole problem. That's the shot through. It depends on the viewpoint of the observer. So Joe's life insurance check, it looked like I might not get it. When he passed, I couldn't figure out why I hadn't received it. When I called the guy, he says, we're concerned about some drug and alcohol treatment that he had within the past 10 years. Well, Joe was 23 years sober when he died. And I said, no, he got sober 23 years ago. It was not in the past 10. And the guy said, I'm afraid that he did have some. And that was back when addictionology doctors were coming into the scene of stuff. And it was just not good news because I thought, oh my God, am I going to really lose this life insurance policy? I had lost Joe's income. I mean, I was in real trouble.
Yeah.
And come to find out, Charlie and I, that's a whole nother story. I'll just leave that off. But Charlie and I managed to go talk to the doctor, and the doctor said, no, this is not, if they need 96, he came in 97, blah, blah, blah. So we ended up getting a check. But what was so interesting is, I mean, I lost so much sleep behind the thought of not getting that check.
Yeah.
2:00 in the morning, eyes pinging open, sweating in the bed. I mean, it was miserable. Now, keep in mind, I had no idea I'm in untreated alcoholism, but this was the worst dark night of the soul I had ever experienced. I've experienced it a time or two since, but it was terrible. So I get the check. It's certified mail. I go pick it up. I literally got the letter opener, slit the top of the envelope, didn't even take the check out of the envelope. Opened it up, saw that it was the accurate amount, which was a very substantial amount of money for me at the time. And I went into instant fear that I'm irresponsible with cash and I'm going to spend it all.
Wow.
So that's the viewpoint of the observer, right? The shot through. Mm-hmm. I mean, you would think I'd get that check and go, oh, thank you, God. Yeah. I didn't, and so that's what we're trying to understand. What self-centered fear is all about. I'm scared to death I'm not going to get the guy. I get him. Now I'm scared to death I'm going to lose him. Mm-hmm. I'm scared to death I'm not going to be qualified to buy the car. I get the car now. I don't think I can pay for it. Yeah. See, so this is where it all becomes so problematic. So we have to look at that second column as self-reliance. Is what do I do? How does self show up for me? How am I self-righteous, self-seeking, self-pity, self-centered? Those things are so important so that I can see how I stand in the way. And this fear is going to come true, but I stand in the way of ever getting out of it, right? And the beauty of those is that I take every form of self and try to figure out how I show up that way so that I've got some real meat on the bone for when I am doing my On Awakening evening review and my 10th step of watching, right? Because that is so important. Sometimes I see people just do inventory and then put it on the shelf and they think about it for 2 days or so. That's good. But they don't take that and really take it where they need to. Yeah. They need to get it deep into their heart and their soul because it's so important, so important. And so then it says, we put them on paper. We asked ourselves why we had them. There's our 4 columns: fear and why I haven't, self-reliance, and then the truth, right? The truth is so important because the truth will blow the whole idea of the fear out of the water, right? The truth is the beauty of what life really has, and that's the part that we get stumped on. That's the part that, even though the truth is clear as a bell, I still don't believe it's going to happen. And then the last column is God's love letter to me, right? Where God is speaking to me about this whole thing. And because if I really tap into believing I can have a conversation with the Creator, I can have a conversation with the Creator. And the beauty is that we let that pen just write, and God just makes the whole fear just melt away. It's a delusion in my mind.
So you actually go
that is
through
not
that.
even accurate.
So on the fourth, you do a fourth column right there, and you turn that into you kind of tap into it and just write it out like a letter from Him. So what you're saying?
Just let God tell you that this fear is just a delusion. It's the dark side trying to pull you down. I have never let you down. Yes. Things like that. That profound stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, trust the process, and you will be shocked at what you just got to let know that God's speaking, and you're just the pen writing. Yeah. And it's an audible, different voice. I mean, it really is remarkable. Wow. And then the prayer, there's a fear prayer that's beautiful. It says we ask Him to remove our fear and direct our attention to what He would have us be. There is that last column. Come on, God, just tell me what it is. Remember, we have to demonstrate, but means we have to meet God halfway. We don't get to say, I need to lose 50 pounds and then go eat a donut. I mean, you got to meet God on this deal, right? Yeah. If you want to ask God for help on your food, you have to step up to the plate and meet Him halfway. And the way we do that is through positive prayer. Just keep affirming that you're fit and lean and comfortable, and you just love the way you look, and just affirm. And people go, well, I don't believe it. I didn't say you have to believe it. You just have to do it. Nice. Who knew that on day one when we got sober that I'd have 40 years? I didn't know that. And today I affirm these amazing things because that's how beautiful God is. God's always trying to get us to wake up. And remember, most fears never come true. So, look back at all your fears, and they just never come true. And then we're going to just talk about the sex inventory. It's really a conduct inventory, right? How do I show up as a neighbor, an AA member, an employee, right? And it says many of us need an overhauling here, which means to examine thoroughly. And don't forget that yes, is sex. Sometimes I think people think when you are writing your sex conduct, because most of us, I mean, come on, when we come into AA, we're either all about sex or the straight pepper diet, right? We're either one or the other. So if you're doing the sex inventory and you're actually focusing on sex, I think people think they're supposed to look for patterns. And I don't agree with that. I thought that for many, many years. We're not looking for patterns. We're just looking where you had been very dishonest with your sex powers. You had really, really used them to get whatever you needed, right? And God knows what that looked like. And is there harm done? Consensual sex is no harm done. Now, if it's consensual sex with a married man, there was probably some harm done, but I don't even want to go into that. That's so deep, so individual. How you're going to handle that is going to be, I'm not a fan of going back to the married man and making an amends. I mean, that just seems like falling on your sword. There's so many, I want to use the word controversial, but there's so many circumstances that you really have to get to the place to where if you don't know how to answer the question, you go ask somebody for help. Yeah. Right, on what should I tell this sponsee about this? Yeah. Because if you are talking about sex and you're trying to, see, it has us write a sane and sound ideal for our sex life. If you're sleeping with, somebody in AA every night, that is going to cause you some serious problems when you have 10 years sober and you're now married and your husband's in AA. And you got 9 guys sitting in the room that you slept with. You get to do it. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. I'm just talking about your future. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm not going to be the arbiter of anybody's sex life. But, I'm going to avoid any more conversation on that. I was going to go down a dark road. But, it says many of us need an overhauling here, right? That means to examine thoroughly. So remember, we're not looking for patterns. We're looking to examine what goes on in my head that makes me think I have to do this, this, or that. It says we're not the arbiter of anybody's sex conduct, right? The silliest line I've ever seen is no relationship in your first year. I get that. I think it's a sponsor just saying, I don't have the time and energy for you to be in a relationship.
Yeah.
I got so many other things to do, because the minute you get in a relationship, my phone is blowing up, right?
Yeah.
So, but I mean, what is it on day 365? You're horny as hell. I mean, come on.
Yeah. That's funny.
But then there's 9 questions that we have to answer. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, and inconsiderate? I mean, to me, those are such spiritual words. Where, as a sister, how did I show up selfish, dishonest, inconsiderate? As a neighbor, how did I do that? If we're going to take sex out of the picture, which is the majority of people in AA now are looking at the inventory as a conduct inventory, that those 3 things, selfish, dishonest, and inconsiderate, are so apparent when we're talking about how I've treated my neighbor, how I've treated my siblings. And so we don't just say we were. It says, where had we been? So we've got to give these some real depth. Then it says, whom had we hurt? And some people just can't wait to put themselves in there. I discourage that. That's not who we're talking about.
Amen.
It's who have we hurt, and the freedom comes from me cleaning this up. Did we unjustifiably arouse jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness? Now, those are 3 powerful words, right? Yeah. You could be talking about, how much money you make, and that's a thoughtless thing in front of somebody who's looking for a job. There is so many things that we can say and do with absolutely no consideration of the people around us listening. Right.
Yeah.
And that's something that, we have to really get awake and aware to. And where were we at fault? Believe it or not, that's a little bit harder for most people to find. Like I said, I love for people to do inventory with me. I'm a big fan of it, because I love hearing inventory. I'd much rather hear it than do it. Let me tell you, because I'd much rather be on the fact-finding instead of the fact-facing part of it, and swallowing and digesting large chunks of truth about ourselves. But let me tell you, when I do it with Marty, she brings the heat. She always starts with that one sweet line, oh, honey, that must have hurt. And she just takes your head and rolls it like a bowling ball down the road. She is merciless. At one point, about 2 weeks ago, I said, I got it, Marty, I got it. Okay, you drive. It's like you're backing over somebody 9 times. I got it. I know what you're saying. And she tied it all into a kind motive. And it was really bizarre.
Wow. Because
I was talking about that I wasn't, that I'm doing okay. And she goes, what does that mean? And I thought, that I'm doing okay? And she goes, well, it sounds like it's got some ... And I damn sure did. And, I swear, don't talk to Marty or I. We'll take it a little bit farther than you want to go. Then the book says that we need to do a sane and sound ideal for our sex life, right? Sane and sound. Based on my selfish behavior, how could I become a better person through God's help, right? I mean, there's one time in my sobriety, this chick came into my world, and she just had such sexual energy. It was so unfortunate. And I knew it was going to ruin the posse we were hanging with. And she just had too much sexual energy. And if I'm going to run with the boys, which I do all the time, I'm very much a tomboy. There is no sexual tension going at all. And Charlie said my wife will just hold her hands up and kind of go, okay, guys, keep it up. We're not going to have any dick jokes. We're not going to do, I don't want any of that. I run with boys, but we're both going to have some integrity and respect that there still is a woman in the room. And Charlie loved that about me. And that's when he said he never had a girl that was a friend. But it was the way I expected people to treat me and me to treat them. And so, there really can. That's when it says, a sane and sound ideal. I have to know if I'm going to run with boys like to tease. So I got to get a little thicker skin, right? I mean, there's all kinds of things that, if that's what you're going to do, if you're with a guy that is black and white and all of a sudden you want him to be more colors of the rainbow, you've probably picked the wrong person.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you can't change,
Yeah.
but you got to really consider that just because you want it differently, you knew what you were signing up for most of the time.
Yeah.
And so, we're always asking for God's help on this stuff. I mean, it's so beautiful what God will do for us. It says if sex becomes troublesome, we throw ourselves harder into working with others. Right. And that, I'm telling you what, the reason why that works is because if you're in a breakup, oh boy, I mean, that's an obsessive spot to be in. Everybody listening to this knows exactly what that looks like. And I mean to tell you, you want to just go help others any way you can, because it is so traumatic. Right. And here's the other thing behind the sex inventory. And I think this is really, really important. It says over on page 69, it says, we reviewed our conduct over the years past. It says, in this way, we tried to shape a sane and sound ideal for our future sex life. And that's going to really require some healthy foundation. We subjected each relationship to this test. Was it selfish or not? We asked God to mold our ideas and help us live up to them. Remember always that our sex powers were God-given and therefore good, neither to be used lightly or selfishly, nor to be despised or loathed. And here's something that's really interesting. It talks about we take it into meditation and we do all these things with it because we're trying to change some radical bad behavior. Most of us, radical bad behavior. And then it says on page 70, suppose we fall short of the chosen ideal and stumble. Does this mean we're going to get drunk? Here's a big promise that's really ugly. Some people tell us so. This is only the half truth. It depends on us and on our motives. If we are sorry for what we have done and have an honest desire to let God take us to better things, we believe we will be forgiven and will have learned our lesson. If we are not sorry and our conduct continues to harm others, we are quite sure to drink. We are not theorizing. These are facts out of our own experience. Wow. So that's the place in the book that tells me we'll drink again.
Yeah.
Is if I use my infidelity. Infidelity, first of all, I believe, I've got some experience with this. Infidelity happens when I'm in untreated alcoholism. I don't believe you can do, and you can call it untreated alcoholism, you can call it dry, you can call it flat, whatever you want to call it. But you cannot pull off the most intimate act when you're married and they're married, or you're married, they're not. If one person in this is married, we've got a problem.
Yeah.
And a big one. And so I'm going to read that line again, because I tell you, people just don't believe that can happen. And it says, if we're not sorry and our conduct continues to harm others, we are quite sure to drink. We are not theorizing. These are the facts out of our own experience. And I'm telling you, I had a roll in the hay with that one, no pun intended. And I mean, it was when I almost drank. It was like I stepped on a goddamn branch. Talk about a mental blank spot. And thank God, God sends me lifeboat after lifeboat after lifeboat. And it was really some of the most scariest times in my sobriety, because I've got the kind of pride that won't come back. I'd rather die than come back. Oh yeah, my pride. These people that come back, I have so much admiration for them, because there's a part of me that just goes, I don't think I could do it. And people go, don't underestimate. I'm like, oh boy, you got no idea what living in this head can be like, and so I always admire people, but I think that's a really good understanding of fear and sex conduct, or, harms to others. conduct inventory. I think those two inventories are very profound, and I hope I was able to give some good insight onto how to do those inventories.
Yeah, wow. Like, honestly, this has been amazing. Like for me, I tell you, like one of the things it's like what I was talking about before we started recording was is like the way you and Charlie did this, like this, particularly the third and the fourth step, literally changed my recovery because and a
Oh,
lot of it has to do with like something as simple as like when you just talked about how like kind of being mindful of like bringing up how much money you make, not considering who was around. A lot of the stuff is the reason that the way y'all do it changed it. The way I did my recovery is that like y'all bring stuff that to the table. It's like wow, holy crap, and y'all get so in depth with it, like you said, you put some meat on the bones, right? To where now you have something to work with. It's like wow, like everything they're talking about is something like not everyone kind of internally goes as deep as some of us, right? But like you're awake to the fact that like
sure.
holy crap, everything they just talked about was like my internal dialogue on a regular basis, right? And
Well, and that's almost like somebody's peeking in the window.
yeah, yeah,
It's like, oh my God,
yeah,
is somebody listening to my head?
yeah. It's
And
crazy.
it, it really is. And I tell you, Charlie and I were so gifted uh, with that ability. I think it was just good BS. It's good, solid stuff. But there was something about he and I together that just had such good stories into this. I mean, I miss him so bad. I can't stand it. But I mean that that role that we had, God has blessed me with so many memories of just great stuff we did, and it's just never lost on me. Never
Yeah,
lost. I feel like he just didn't come home from a war, and we fought a good battle,
mm,
and together we did an amazing dance, and I never took it for granted, but I tell you, there's some deep sorrow that I can't continue with Charlie. Chad and I did a really good job in Georgia, and I told Chad, I said, I love you with all my heart, Chad, and you're the best person to do the dance with me, but I still felt like I had two left shoes on because
yeah,
I knew
wow,
what Charlie was going to say. I knew
mm.
where I was going to get frustrated with him. I mean, it's just,
Wow,
oh my gosh, he's going to recap what I just said again. But it's just, we just, and let me tell you, Paul, I think it's so important to understand our first 4 years were so difficult
mm.
when we were together. So difficult. I mean, to tell you, I did not think we were going to make it. And that's the part that blows me away is that, God kept us, uh, uh, unbeknownst to us, we tried very hard to blow this thing up, this relationship.
Mm.
And I think God is like, the whole time, I'm going to put you two out there, and they're going to wake up so many people because of the way you two are. And Charlie and I never saw that. Never in a million years until we saw it.
Mm.
And then we'd sometimes laugh about, my gosh, I broke up with him 22 times in 4 years. And it did not look like we were ever going to get this thing across the finish line. And oh my gosh, I just love him with all my heart. And I'm glad we got so many talks that everybody can still, hear Charlie, even if they're getting sober today. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome, and it's so cool because
Mm,
that's the cool part about doing what we're doing here is like, man, think about all the old talks that are available to us that change so many lives, right? Just change so many freaking lives.
absolutely.
It's crazy, man. It
We are
literally,
we are so fortunate.
yeah, it's crazy how like I don't know, what happened was I had like some life changing experiences through listening to y'all's talks and just different other talks throughout the years. And I was like, man, I think I felt like I had somewhat of a responsibility to like get it out there and share it. I don't, in a lot of areas, a lot of this stuff isn't talked about. And the truth is like I've never heard anybody talk about a third and fourth step the way I heard you and Charlie talk about it. Honestly, never have.
Oh, how cool is that? Well, and I'll tell you, one of the things that I think is so cool about that is that when you asked me, I've told you this, I did not want to do this.
Yeah, yeah,
I was like, oh, no, 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 I do not want to do this. And I mean, I looked so fortunate. Remember, I told you I was really tired, and
Yeah.
now I'm just energized.
Nice.
I love your whole, Paul, you've really done a great service to AA about, doing this podcast and really putting this stuff out there. And, this is not a simple task. You have really heard the voice of God and done what you want to do. And I really admire it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, appreciate it. It's people like you that, and so many others that have inspired it, so thank you so
That's
much.
so cool. So cool, Paul. You bet. And then we'll come back and you're going to send me the list of how we're going to do the rest of these.
And for the listeners, the next time we're going to meet up, me and Katie are going to be doing Wednesday. It's going to be April 2nd, 2025. We're going to do steps 5, 6, and 7 for those that want to stay in contact with us. So, and also for all the listeners, keep sending the comments. If you have any questions, if you have anything you'd like to, her to dive into a little bit more in depth or any of that, just comment on it and we'll try to make it happen. So thank you so much, Katie.
Absolutely, Paul. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Hello. Thank you for listening to 3 Legacies Recovery Recordings. If you enjoy our program, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to share with a friend. We're also self-supporting, so feel free to contribute to the channel through Venmo at Recovery Recordings 615. Please note that the views expressed on this podcast are solely our individual views and do not represent any official stance of any 12-step program. We are not affiliated with any specific recovery organization, and this content should not be considered as professional advice for alcoholism or addiction.